So it's now 8:15, close enough. So now is the time for the last talk. Excellent. I got my clock over here, but it's always wrong. That's why I like it. I can trust it. And you know it's always wrong. And on the last talk, the question which somebody always asks, they've already asked it once, and I can answer it once and twice. Usually we do things 3 times, so I answer it 3 times. And that is, how can we make use of all you've learnt on this retreat when you go back outside to the false world? I never call it the real world anymore. And there's a lot of reason for that. You go into a shopping centre, you go in to see people, and they're not really who they are. That's one of the reasons why I was already mentioning about my conduct of a Buddhist marriage ceremony. I always make sure I have lots of holy water. And I sprinkle, especially, not so much the groom, but the bride. Because she's always wearing so much makeup. And I want the husband to see who he's really marrying. I'm a very naughty monk, but in a good way. So that means we have the reality. And a lot of times, I mention this to young women, young men, the most important part of makeup, the one which makes you most attractive, is your smile and the happiness. You have that and just people love looking at you. And that's the only explanation I have why people keep making photographs of me. I'm old. I'm a monk, bald-headed. Why do you take photographs of me? Honestly, I'm old. I'm worn out. I'm past my use-by date. And the reason is just because you can smile and look happy, and that can inspire people. And that's one of the reasons why I encourage people in the smiling and laughing meditations. So what do you do when you get home? How do you practice then? And there's one of the old stories which I always love saying, and that old story was of the long time ago when his professor went into a boat to travel overseas to give some lectures. It's days before aircraft. So as he was the first night at sea, that he went for a walk on deck after the dinner. And there he saw this old sailor, obviously been sailing on these ships for so many years. And the professor went up to that sailor and said, "What a beautiful night it is. You can see all the stars in the heavens above." And the professor said to the sailor, actually seeing the stars, that's how you guide the ships. So you must be an expert on astronomy. You must know all of the constellations, all of the main stars and the planets in the sky. You must know more than I do about astronomy, and that's one of my hobbies. And the old sailor looked at him and said, "Yeah, it's true. I've been traveling on these oceans all my life, since I was a young boy. But I don't know anything about the stars. I don't know their names or how they operate or anything." And at that, the professor was just so upset. He said, "What? All your life at sea, and you never bothered to study about the stars which are above your head every evening, which are so important to guide your ship in whichever way it needs to go? What a waste of a life, you stupid old man." The professor wasn't very polite. But sailors, okay. And so he shrugged his shoulders, and the professor went somewhere else. And the next night at sea, after dinner, The professor had nowhere else to go, so he went on a walk on the deck, and this time he saw the old sailor looking into the oceans. He said, "Oh wow, now I know what you're interested in. All the marine life, the currents, all the different animals which swim in the sea below you. You must be an expert on marine science." He said, "What? Marine science. Marine what?" "I haven't got a clue what you're talking about, Professor." "What? In all these years sailing the oceans of the world, you never bothered to pick up a book about marine science?" "Nope, don't know anything about it." "You stupid old man. You stupid old man. What a waste of a life. What a waste of a life." You know the story? Oh, someone too. Someone don't. Oh, good. As long as there's one person who hasn't heard the story before, or has heard it but forgotten it, then I'm happy. So the professor just went away and thought, I never want to speak to that fool again. But you have all those opportunities. Why don't you learn about the world around you? So anyway, the third night at sea, it was a very beautiful dinner. So the professor was in a good mood. When he went up on deck, there was this beautiful light breeze wafting over the ocean. And the professor said, "I'll give this old man another chance." He went up to the old man and said, "I apologize how I spoke to you the last 2 nights. Actually, I am a professor of meteorology, and I am now traveling overseas to give lectures on meteorology. And I realize you may not know so much about the life underneath the boat or about the stars over the boat, but you must know about the wind and the storms and the weather systems. Because in those days, that's what drives your boat, by filling the sails with wind. And it can also drive you off course. And very severe weather, it may even capsize your ship. You must be an expert on meteorology. Do you mind if we compare notes?" And the old man said, "Meteor what?" "Weather, winds, rain, storms." "I don't know about that either." "Really? You really are a stupid old man, the stupidest old man I've ever met. What a waste of a life. What a waste of a life. What a waste of the life." And the professor stormed off, and he decided he'd got to keep his vow now, never to waste his time with such a person who hasn't learnt anything about the world around him. And the fourth night, I know that some people think, how long does this have to go on for? But the ending is coming soon. The fourth night at sea, the professor never had any dinner, because it was one of these rough nights at sea. The boat was rocking and rocking and rocking. And the professor suffered seasickness, so he decided it'd be better not to eat that evening. So he stayed in his cabin. But the later the night got, the more that boat rocked. It was quite a severe storm coming up. And he stayed in his cabin, didn't want to talk to anyone or eat anyone. And then it was rocking very, very badly. And at one point, there was a big bang! That really made him scared. And so, when he got the courage, he opened the door to find out what was going on. And right outside his room, there was somebody running. It was the old seaman, the old sailor. And the old sailor stopped and turned to the frightened professor and said, "Professor, in all of your years, have you ever learnt swimming?" The professor said, "Well, actually, no. You stupid professor. What a waste of life. The ship's sinking." And I like that story, one, because it's funny, and you remember it. Number two, because in life, what's the most important thing to do? You may learn so many things about life, but learn to keep your head above water no matter what's happening. That's perhaps one of the most useful things to learn. And that's why we teach meditation retreats. Doesn't matter what happens to you in life. The meditation can give you that peace to see the right solutions and to save your life and many other people's lives. So please learn how to keep your head above water, how to swim, by learning how to be peaceful in your mind. And of course, that's one of the reasons we teach meditation at all levels, because the results are fantastic. There's one of our monks, some of you have seen him, Venerable Nito, Ajahn Nito now. He's Norwegian. And I do remember when he first ordained, his parents were not all that happy that he was ordaining. They let him. And then after about 4 or 5 years here in Bodhinyana, he got this letter from his brother. His father had a heart attack and was very close to death. So he quickly contacted his mother, and his mother sent this, it must have been an email or a fax, because I remember reading it, and it said, "Yes, son," Bjorn Berg his name was, I think, "Yes, please come back. We'll have a suit ready for you. We don't want to see you in those robes." And poor old Ajahn Nito showed that letter to me. He said, "What should I do?" I said, "Reply. Mum, it's either these robes or naked. Make your choice." That's what happened to me once when I went in the hospital for a checkup. That was a funny story too. I just had low energy. I didn't know why. No one ever found out the reason why. But there was one of the Sri Lankan people here, one of the first of our followers over here in Western Australia. He was a doctor at the local hospital in Rockingham. So he said, "Can I just get you in the hospital for 6 days and I'll do some checks if there's anything I can find is wrong with you?" Okay. But then, number one, when I checked in at the hospital, they said, "Have you brought your pajamas?" As a monk, I don't wear pajamas. And I told the lady at the check-in desk, I said, "It's either these robes or naked. What do you want?" "Robes will do, thank you." That was not the most embarrassing thing. The doctor himself, Dr. Mendes, that's Gita Mendes' father, you know him. And the problem was, he was a gynecologist. Yeah, you know what happened. So on my bed is a Brahma Wangso and Dr. Mendes, gynecologist. And I was wearing very funny pajamas, these robes. And I think that's what cured me. I created so much happiness. People came in just to look and laugh. So anyway, that was good fun. So, where was I going with this one? I forget now anyway. So that there's many advantages. And when I told this Nito write back to his mum and say that, she accepted it. So he had to wear his robes. But the best part of that, his father eventually did die. And when he died, Ajahn Nito was staying over there. And I got this beautiful letter from his elder brother. His elder brother sent this letter to me. And he said, "When my younger brother, now Venerable Nito, ordained as a Buddhist monk, we had no understanding what he was up to, what he was doing. But during that time of our father's death and the cremation and everything else, without him, we'd have all gone crazy. He was that person in our family who kept us all together, and his wisdom was just so meaningful. We're not Buddhists by worshipping anything. We just very valued what he had learned. We're not quite sure what that was, but please make sure he stays as a monk. He's got our family's full support. And when they said things like that, I thought, wow, sometimes what you learn as a monk helps the whole family. In a real life tragedy, like father just dying suddenly like that. And those are the sorts of things which I really like to see. Not just the monks getting deep meditation. That's important too, probably the most important. But also the way that you can serve and help the people who brought you up, your mother and father. And a lot of times they don't even call themselves Buddhists. They've touched something because their son or their daughter is a bhikkhuni. And when they see what it actually means, they value it so much. And as being a monk, this is another story I wanted to tell earlier, but it kind of didn't fit in. That sometimes, as a Buddhist monk or Buddhist nun, it's amazing how you can find those connections, not just with family who are not Buddhists, but with other people who aren't Buddhist. One of those occasions I often tell was when, I deliberately tried to make connections between leaders of other religions, especially when I started to serve the cancer survivors or the ones suffering from cancer, and going over to this place in Cottesloe once a year and them coming here once a year, doing that for about 37 years. And I do that simply because they keep inviting me. Please come, please, please, please. And so I do remember one of the people there who was also trying to help was an Anglican priest. And I got to be friendly with him. And one year he became the chaplain at Christchurch Grammar School in Perth. And if any of you have ever seen that school, it's right on the River Swan. Beautiful views. If they ever lost any money, they could sell that place for a huge amount. It's absolutely gorgeous. And anyhow, they invited me there one morning to give a lecture to the students. So I arrived early, and I had to stay outside when it was an all-boys school, where all the boys went inside. It's not an all-boys school now, they have girls as well. And by that time it was all-boys school. They were just congregating inside and sitting down and settling down. And I was outside with the principal and the chaplain. And the principal turned to me and said, "Thank you for coming. This is a very elite Anglican school. And because it's an Anglican school, we have a little shrine to Jesus in the front. And myself, I'm a very strong, very, very devout Anglican. And so is the chaplain, of course. And he said, when we go inside, we're going to do a little bow to the statue of Jesus. But you're a Buddhist monk, you don't have to do that. I think you've all got to know my character, those of you who've seen me for the first time, or seen me many times. And I decided this is a wonderful opportunity to rebel. I actually did this. I had some nerve. I looked at the principal in the eye and said, "I demand my right to bow to your statue of Jesus." That's what I said. And this principal looked at me, stunned. He looked at the chaplain. Who have you invited to? And because the chaplain knows me really well, he said, oh yeah, that's Ajahn Brahm. It's okay. So we went inside, and I did my little bow to the statue of Jesus as well. And that became my little talk to all the kids in the school and all the staff. How can a very devoted Buddhist monk, a leader of a Buddhist community, do a bow to a statue of Jesus? And I said, there's something in that statue which I can choose to respect. Not all of it, some of it I thought was a bit silly, but a lot of it I can actually admire that, and that's what I'm going to bow to. And then during the talk, I explained why Buddhists bow 3 times to a Buddha statue if you're Theravada. Why do you do that? Has anyone ever explained it to you? Or just follow other people? I really rebel against that, just following other people, not understanding what you're doing. And I said, when I bow to a Buddha statue, a big one, a small one, anywhere, I bow to what it means to me. My first bow is always to virtue, sila. I've lived not a very long life yet, but if I follow all your wishes, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to die. But nevertheless, I've lived a long enough life to see the beauty of virtue. When people actually keep their promises, and refuse to lie, when they don't drink or take drugs, when they don't kill each other, and they're peaceful, and they want to help, and they don't want to argue and defeat other things which they don't agree with. They're not into violence, they're virtuous, they're good, they're trustworthy. One of the examples of that was when a friend of mine, a friend from primary school, came to visit me in Thailand, and that's when I told him how beautiful it was in the mornings to go on alms round. And it's the break of dawn, people have just gone up, and the whole scene is just so tranquil, so peaceful, things which have happened for hundreds, thousands of years. So he said, yeah, I'd love to come on alms round with you, but I don't get up that early in the morning. I'm not a monk like you. And I said, don't worry, I'll knock on your door, I think about 5:30. Give you enough time to just wash your face, put on some clothes, and come on alms round. And of course I did that. And while we were walking on alms round together, he told me that was one of the strangest experiences I've ever had. He said, when you said you'd be there at 5:30 and knock on my door, I knew you'd be there. I had not the slightest bit of doubt. In London, he said, you cannot expect people to keep their promises. All my friends and associates, knock on the door at 5:30, maybe 5:40, maybe 6 o'clock, that's close enough. But I knew you'd actually be there. And that was one of the first times I realized the power of virtue. You're being with someone and you know, without any doubt, that what they say is what they'll do. He said that was weird. Totally out of his usual understanding of what human beings do and say. I love that, when that virtue makes the whole world so dependable and so easy. So that's a virtue. I bow to that. When I bow to the Buddha, I remember virtue. I worship it. And because I put my head down, the symbol of virtue is up. That's respect. And my second bow is to peace. Isn't it wonderful when you have peace in this center here? Have you had anybody arguing? I'm not sure what happens when you have breakfast or lunch. Is it that somebody gets the best sandwich and you get second best because they get there very quickly? Do you ever get upset with what you're served? Oh, you're so happy and it's peaceful in there. You respect one another. That's also that story I said when that lady needed to sleep more in another retreat. And she did. And when she came up to me and the people she was sharing the room with, they looked at her, unhappily. She thought that was anger. I said, it was not. They told me. It was jealousy. They realized you had the guts to look after your body and sleep a bit more. Not anger, but jealousy. They cared for you. Or that guy who had a sinus cancer and couldn't breathe through his nose and was breathing so loudly. All the people in that retreat said, oh no, we understand, we really wish him well, we hope he gets better. And that's usually what happens on a retreat. You have this higher mind, and because of a higher mind you want other people to be well as you. You get better too. And so that man with sinus cancer eventually, as I've told before, he got totally better in remission. One of the best stories though, that there is a hospice in St. John of God Hospital over here. And now I think they call it in Murdoch, yeah. And anyway, one of the first people who went in there, he had lung cancer. And when he just checked in, he told me that the nurse came up to him and said, it was Fred. Fred, what do you want for dinner this evening? And you know the story, don't you? Remember it? He said, well look, as well as the cancer, I've got diabetes, so I can't have anything sweet or syrupy. I've got high cholesterol, so please no oil. And I've got hardened arteries, so please no salt. And I've been telling the monks, anyone who cooks food for me, please add extra salt. You know why? Because people complain that I'm too soft. I need to be more hard. And I heard that salt hardens the arteries of the heart. I thought that might be my method of... Okay, I'm only joking. Am I? You see what I eat. Anyway, this guy, he said, I can't have any salt, can't have anything oily, can't have any sugar, can't have any of this. And the nurse looked at him and said, Fred, you're not going to die of cholesterol problems or diabetes problems or hardened arteries. You're going to die in about 3 or 4 days, so I'm told, of the lung cancer. You don't have to worry what you eat. And his eyes went wide. You mean I can eat anything? Yes. And so the nurse gave him the sweetest, oiliest, saltiest food. And he said it was the food his wife had never allowed him to eat for years. And he really, what they say, I don't know the other ways of describing it, he's picked out, ate a lot of all his favourite food, which most people say is unhealthy. What happened to him? After 5 or 6 days, he went into remission. And he walked out of that hospital on his own legs. Out of the hospice. It's only supposed to be, you only go into the hospice in a stretcher and you go out in a box. That's what a hospice is like. But he got better. That's kind of something which you always know intuitively and experientially, the importance of happiness and joy in whatever you're doing. So that was good old Fred. He actually, the cancer did come back about 6 months later, and he went to the hospice seriously this time, and he came out in a box. But anyway, the whole idea of like challenging the norms, he had some happiness. And I think you all realise how that happiness is a great therapy. That's one of the reasons why I like to make you laugh, if you'd allow me to. You can resist the therapy, as people do with good doctors. But anyhow, so that's what we did there. And it's also why you can learn insights which you never expected. Oh, with that, so that was the peace. When you create some peace and happiness, it's incredibly helpful. That's why we have peace on this retreat. Peace in the community. Peace in the monastery. And when you come here, can you feel the peace? Isn't that worth worshipping? So my second vow is always to peace. Peace in my own body, peace in the world, peace in the community, and a deep peace in the mind. Wherever I see it, it's so easy to worship. In other words, I remember its importance. I bow, it's above me. And the last one, which I bow to, as I've said to people many times, is compassion, the kindness. When you see people making so much sacrifices to be kind to somebody else, to be kind to animals, to be kind to people who you think don't deserve kindness, and you realize, of course they do. And there's so many beautiful examples of that. I still remember that monk over in Sri Lanka. He would give blood regularly. And one day he got a call from the blood bank. He said, as well as giving blood, we found a match that you could give one of your kidneys to this person who's really suffering. Are you willing to do that? And before he could answer, they said, this person who needs the kidney is a very strong and well-known Christian evangelist. He's converting so many Buddhists over in Sri Lanka to being Christians. Would you mind giving one of your kidneys for him? Of course not. If he needs it, he gets one. And the only difficulty there was someone in the news found out, and he got really famous. A Buddhist monk whose kindness transcended just, ideas. I'm not going to give it to him. I don't like him. If, for example, Mr. Trump needed a kidney and you were a perfect match, would you give it to him? Why not? I would, if the Pope wanted one, or Adolf Hitler wanted one, and I was a perfect match, I would give. Giving is something different than judging. And it's an act of compassion. If someone really needs it, you give it. That's how I feel as a Buddhist monk. Anyway, he got really famous, so he went off into the forest for a while and just lay low until they just any sort of praise disappeared and vanished. To me, that was inspirational. Great acts of kindness and compassion, which he had to withstand so much criticism for. But he did it. Those acts of kindness and compassion is what inspires me. Hopefully it inspires you. And sometimes one of my weaknesses, please excuse me, is that I get invited to too many places to give talks. I accept too many invitations, and the monks are very critical of that. Is that correct? Ajahn Brahm, relax more. You've done so many invitations for such a long time. Can't you just sit back and relax? Uh-oh. A couple gave me an invitation yesterday evening. They're going now. So it's great. Thank you for inviting me to Vietnam. I'm such a weakling. I'm going to go. I just can't say no for a good invitation. So anyhow, that's acts of kindness, compassion. This once I'm giving a talk in Nolamar on a Friday evening, and somebody said, there was a call from Singapore. It's one of the disciples, her husband had died. And somebody said, Ajahn Brahm, they would really love it if you can come for the funeral. I said, well, when is the funeral? Saturday morning. It's Friday night, and I was in Nolamara. And it's a crazy thing to do. That's why I did it. I finished the Friday night talk, managed to book a flight on Singapore Airlines, leaving at midnight and arriving in Singapore about 6 o'clock in the morning. And so I did the funeral. And I did that simply because it was totally ridiculous. And that's just out of compassion and kindness. And I survived, it wasn't that bad. And because you can't delay a funeral, you can't say, oh, can you please ask your husband to die and the next day, please? Once they're dead, they're dead. So anyway, I did that for them. And those acts of compassion and kindness, when it really is hard, I love those. And that's one of the reasons why that's my third vow, to compassion. It also includes generosity. It includes so much more. I mean, one of the kindest acts I've ever seen was I was in Nolamara Temple, I was going to give a talk that evening, I was there early, and there was one of these ladies, she was Laotian, and she was crying in front of me. So what's the problem? Her mother was dying, and her mother lived in Oregon. For some mistake by the migration community, so immigration, they sent her mother and her family over to United States, and she was sent to Western Australia alone. That was her family. And I lived in long enough in northeast Thailand. I noticed how essential that is. And so she was bursting out crying, and there was another lady, just a Thai lady, who was out of work. She used to be a nurse, but she'd really wrecked her back and was not sort of able to work anymore. She was on a pension. And I remember her listening to what this Laotian lady was saying. And then she got out her handbag, and she got out her checkbook, and she wrote out a check with no amount on it, a blank check for this Laotian lady. Go and get yourself an air ticket. Forget the amount, I'll find out. How many times have you received a blank check from someone who's out of work? Yes, that was beautiful. And when I see things like that, I remember them when I remember the importance of kindness and compassion. If I possibly can do it, doesn't matter how much it hurts, I trust people. And then if I trust them wrong or something goes wrong, it doesn't matter. Someone can help somewhere. And those are my three vows. For virtue, peace and compassion. When I explain that to all the kids at Christchurch Grammar School, and of course the principal was listening to, the principal liked it so much that he arranged some cars and a bus to come and have an official school visit to Bodhinyana Monastery. I'll never forget that either. He arrived in his car early, and the two of us, the principal of Christchurch Grammar School and I, we walked into the main hall at Bodhinyana Monastery. We both took off our shoes, and then we both went to the front of the hall. We bowed 3 times, side by side, to virtue, peace, and compassion. He understood what it meant. And even as a Christian, it was such an easy thing to do. That's one of the reasons why when we teach with meaning, it really makes so much sense. And it's easy to do. We break the barriers between peoples, and we have so much more fun. I still remember, I arranged the ordination of women a few years ago. And so when, here in Perth, the Anglican community did the ordination for the first female bishop, Kate Goldsworthy. And so I was invited to the ceremony. Never again. It takes 2 hours. It's such a long ceremony. But I was okay because they put me in the heretics pew. Together with Abbot Placid of the Benedictine monastery, we were good friends, and also the leader of the Uniting Church. I've known him for such a long time. And we spent those 2 hours, actually not the total 2 hours, maybe the last hour and a half, telling funny stories and jokes to each other. We were like naughty kids at school. But because we were leaders of our communities, they couldn't do anything to us. We could be naughty. And Abbot Placid was really naughty. The Benedictine community. And eventually I went to his funeral ceremony when he died. He insisted that I go there before he died. And so I had to say a few words, and they said they were good friends. I like having friends, who are different than I am. And it's beautiful to have those connections. So anyhow, this is what we learn. It's not maybe what you expect, but it's actually how you create those bonds with other people in the community. They're trying to do their best, and I learn from them. I know that with Abbot Placid, it's the only other monastery we had, or that there was, in Western Australia. So if there's anybody who came and said they wanted to stay in Bodhinyana Monastery or Jhana Grove, I was a bit suspicious of them. I used to give him a call, secret abbot's business, and find out this person, him, crikey, I wouldn't get him to go in your monastery, because they stayed in his monastery. Yeah, she's all right. So I get all the secret gossip about people who wanted to come in. I'm being honest with you. It's a very valuable relationship there. So anyway, I can talk for hours. I should actually shut up sometimes. But anyway, one thing I was going to say before I finish, that I know you don't need to give me anything. At the end of a retreat, people say, you helped me very much, can I give you a little gift? No. I don't need anything. I'm a very happy monk. And sometimes I'm going to get into trouble here with the organisers of the retreat. They say, can't you give a donation to Jhana Grove so we can increase the comfort of the facilities? No. I'm much more devious than that. I admit it. Because some years ago, we loaned some money to be able to start building a nuns monastery over in the UK. It was very tough. I had to find out, was this really a worthwhile project? What really made me doubt, they found this nice piece of land over in Oxford. Oxford. If that was Cambridge, there'd be no doubt at all. I did make a mistake the other day when I was talking about those two places. It is the Oxford which are the dark blues, the Cambridge are the light blues. So Venerable Chanda, she's gone over to the dark side. The dark blues. Okay, anyway, forget about that. So what she borrowed the money, or I talked our committee into giving a loan. From which part of the Buddhist Society of Western Australia? From Jhana Grove. This place. So Jhana Grove lent her, actually she's in debt to Jhana Grove, about $500,000 Aussie. So, what I said to the previous retreat, I said if you want to actually give a donation which will end up in Jhana Grove, give it to Anukampa first. And it goes over there, and then when she has enough, she sends it back over here. It's kind of efficient. And it pays off her debt. And I say that, I have to admit, why am I saying this? Because in Anukampa Bhikkhuni project, it's like run by a trust. They have a group of about 7 or 8 trustees. You know who's the head trustee? I get myself involved in all sorts of places. So I'm the head trustee of the place. So I'm saying that for also my benefit, so I don't have to keep saying these things. So anyway, if anybody wants to make any appreciative donations to Anukampa. Make sense? How hard is it to be a bhikkhuni? Yeah. But you don't want the creditors of the police or something arresting you. Actually, some of the nuns might say, hey, can you arrest that nun? Should I say that? Am I going to get into trouble? Quite likely. No, you want to make sure they're well supported. So, if anybody wants to arrange anything like that, I know that the last retreat, Christina collected some of the money and sent it over there. Okay. Any questions, comments, or complaints? What I call the 3 C's. No? Great. So now is a good time for a toilet break. The alternative to a toilet break, what I said, if you really need to go to the toilet, but you don't think you have enough time, I told you yesterday that it's great to be able to drink your urine. Then you don't have to walk over there, you don't have to queue. I've got my cup here. Because I don't behave. I can't. The next thing we're going to do is the loving kindness meditation. And out of loving kindness for you, those who need to go to the toilet, off you go. And have a quick relief. When you go to the toilet, please remember, it's letting go meditation. But it is. In about 10 minutes' time, we can come back and start the loving kindness meditation. Now, while we're waiting, is there any questions? Anyone has?
So, I'm just trying to remember the story. Know all the story. So,